American foreign policy comes loud with naval ships, sanctions enforcement, and corporate takeovers. When China wants resource control, the commercial deals run behind the scenes, with loan officers and contract lawyers, and you don't see it anywhere. That's the only real difference. China refines 92% of the world's rare earths, runs about 80% of the cobalt mining in the DRC, and built that position over 15 years through deals that lock host countries into Chinese processing plants with no economic exit. It's the same coercion with quieter tools. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a Chinese miner called COMC produced 741,000 tons of copper and 117,000 tons of cobalt last year. That's one Chinese company in one country, supplying roughly 80% of the cobalt that ends up in the world's batteries and EVs. And the offtake contracts wrote every ton of it to Chinese refining facilities, the only buyers operating at that scale to absorb that volume. The US runs the same playbook in Venezuela. Chevron operates under a treasury license at the legal maximum 49% stake in Petro Independencia, and the crude routes to Gulf Coast refineries that are the only buyers operating at the scale to absorb it. In Pakistan, China holds a 40-year concession on Gwadar Port and has put around $65 billion into the broader China-Pakistan economic corridor, including power plants, special economic zones, and road and rail. And Pakistan is now drawing on PBOC swap lines and Chinese central bank credit to make payments on the Chinese loans that built it. The country is borrowing from China to pay China back. This is the same loop the IMF runs in Latin America and parts of Africa, except the lender of last resort is China's central bank instead of the US's. Laos doesn't actually own its own national railway. It owns a 30% minority stake in a Chinese-controlled operating company, and that 30% was financed by China Exim Bank loans. So Laos is paying off Chinese debt to hold minority equity in the railway that runs across its own territory, which is now the region's primary trade corridor. And yesterday, the same COMC from the DRC signed a $1.7 billion contract with Ecuador's energy ministry for a copper and gold project. Ecuador's president has been publicly aligned with Trump's administration. Chinese firms still control roughly 2/3 of Ecuador's copper reserves. So don't get caught up in assessing moral rectitude. The two main superpowers run the same campaign. One just has 750 bases to enforce it versus the others two. I track how the world order shifts as these two compete for control and which sectors and names fit the framework. More on the Substack.